With the Fox News Alert on a very busy day in Washington, D.C., the Senate heading into its next confirmation battle and President Trump hitting back after criticism from his own Supreme Court nominee. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Happening Now. I'm Jenna Lee.
Seems like those confirmation battles are going to be kind of a daily thing for a long time. I'm John Scott. President Trump speaking this hour with the Afghan president. One of a number of phone calls today with Middle Eastern leaders. That is just part of what's on his agenda. This as details emerge from a private meeting between Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, who says Judge Gorsuch called the president's attacks on the court system disheartening and demoralizing. President Trump then lashing out at Senator Blumenthal via Twitter. We'll have more on that in a moment. The president this morning attending the swearing in of Senator Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, confirmed last night after a long and bitter battle in the Senate. The next big confirmation showdown, Tom Price to be Health and Human Services Secretary. We have live team coverage. Mike Emanuel is on Capitol Hill, but we begin with Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts on the North Lawn. John.
John, good morning to you. Already a busy day here at the White House, as we have gotten used to over the last 3 weeks. And the president absolutely going off today at Connecticut Senator Richard Blumenthal after Blumenthal started dishing about a private meeting that he had yesterday with the president's nominee for the Supreme Court, Judge Neil Gorsuch. Blumenthal told the press that Gorsuch during that private meeting was very critical of attacks that the president has leveled on Twitter and in person against judges involved in the case regarding his extreme vetting order. Listen to what he said.
Certainly expressed to me that he is disheartened by the demoralizing and abhorrent comments made by President Trump about the judiciary.
Blumenthal says that Gorsuch seemed to encourage him to go public with what he said, but sources close to Gorsuch are saying it did not go down like that. They say Gorsuch did express that verbal attacks against members of the judiciary are both disheartening and demoralizing, but he did not say that the president's comments were, quote, abhorrent. Former Senator Kelly Ayotte, who is shepherding Gorsuch around Capitol Hill, insists the judge's comments were not specific to President Trump, in a statement saying, quote, he could not comment on any specific cases and that judicial ethics prevent him from commenting on political matters. While he made clear that he was not referring to any specific case, he said that he finds any criticism of a judge's integrity and independence disheartening and demoralizing. President Trump ripped Blumenthal on Twitter, saying, quote, Senator Richard Blumenthal, who never fought in Vietnam, when he said for years he had, major lie, now misrepresents what Judge Gorsuch told him. The president also this morning ripping Senator John McCain again after McCain said that the raid in Yemen on January 29th that took the life of Navy SEAL Ryan Owens was, quote, not a success. Here's what the president said this morning, a Twitter storm, we should say. Senator McCain should not be talking about the success or failure of a mission to the media, only emboldens the enemy. He's been losing so long, he doesn't know how to win anymore. Just look at the mess our country is in, bogged down in conflict all over the place. Our hero, Ryan, died on a winning mission, according to General Mattis, not a, quote, failure. Time for the U.S. to get smart and start winning again. The president just finished up a meeting with the CEOs of some of the major airlines and people who are in charge of many of the airport authorities across the country, saying that the plan to replace the air traffic control system with the next gen system is obsolete already and thinks that that should be looked at again. Also saying that the head of the FAA should be a pilot and not a political appointee. Also suggesting that there is a major tax cut news coming down the pike in just a few weeks' time. And the president, and we're on a windstorm here today, apologies. The president also having a listening session with some Republicans and people who he believes are persuadable on the Democratic side, people like Tester, Heitkamp, and Manchin in the Senate, to talk about his nominee for the Supreme Court. So, again, a very busy morning and a busy lunch for the president. And the day isn't even half over yet. John?
Keeps you reporters hopping there at the White House. In a very windy Washington, John Roberts, thank you.
Well, the next showdown for the president's cabinet is for Health and Human Services Secretary. Tom Price is expected to be confirmed early tomorrow. Price is a former orthopedic surgeon and Georgia congressman. He's come under some fire from Democrats, as you know. They're raising ethics concerns over some of his financial dealings, among other things. Our chief congressional correspondent, Mike Emanuel, is live from Capitol Hill with more on this. Mike?
Jenna, good morning. All indications are, despite those criticisms, that Dr. Tom Price will be confirmed as the next Secretary of Health and Human Services in the next 15 hours or so. Dr. Price is seen as a key figure in Republican efforts to repeal and ultimately replace Obamacare. As a member of the House, Price has offered proposals on how Republicans could address the health care system in this country and has experience in it as an orthopedic surgeon. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell talked a short time ago about Price's qualifications to lead Health and Human Services.
He can start bringing stability to the health care markets Obamacare has harmed. He can start bringing relief to the families Obamacare has hurt. I know he's ready to get to work with Congress to move toward truly patient-centered health care, care that prioritizes the needs of patients over the needs of Washington.
After a couple of all-nighters on the Senate floor, there are signs things have calmed down some, perhaps a sign of fatigue. Betsy DeVos and Jeff Sessions were still confirmed to their cabinet posts. The Senate's top Democrat launched this attack on Dr. Price on TV last night.
In terms of ethics, Tom Price, who's now on the floor, sold and traded $300,000 of stocks and then introduced legislation that would have some of them move up. And in terms of their views, they're just so out of touch with the American people and, frankly, what Donald Trump campaigned on.
Price says his stock trades were made by his financial advisor and were completely legal. There are signs after all that fighting this week that perhaps there may be a deal in the works to get the final two cabinet confirmations of this week, Price and Steve Mnuchin for Treasury Secretary, done before Saturday morning. Jenna?
All right, we'll be watching. Mike, thank you.
Sure.
So President Trump responding to those reported comments from his Supreme Court nominee, Judge Neil Gorsuch, calling Mr. Trump's attacks on the judiciary disheartening and demoralizing. Mr. Trump lashing out then at Senator Richard Blumenthal, tweeting that he misrepresented the judge's comments during their meeting, even though members of the judge's own team back up the senator's account. So let's talk about it all with Jamie Weinstein, host of the Jamie Weinstein Show podcast. Julie Roginski is a Fox News contributor and former political advisor to the late New Jersey Senator Frank Lautenberg. Welcome to both of you. Jamie.
Good to see you.
Are you surprised at this disagreement, I guess, this criticism of the president's comments from the man he just nominated to the Supreme Court?
Well, look, viewers who have been paying attention for the last 2 years may have come to the conclusion or the understanding that Donald Trump is not a man who likes criticism very much. I would imagine he especially doesn't like criticism from someone he just gave the biggest promotion that the guy will ever have in his life. So, no, I mean, he obviously is going to lash out. But I think many people on the right will look at this as noise. And on the scale of the Trump outrage meter, it ranks very low. And what the takeaway is that when this noise finally fades, people on the right are going to be happy because Donald Trump nominated and will get through a staunch conservative justice who will be on the court many decades from now, long after all these Twitter tweets this morning are long forgotten.
All right, so that's Jamie's take of what people on the right should be feeling. Julie, give us what people on the left are feeling.
Well, if people on the left were a little conspiratorial minded, they might think this is all part of a kabuki theater to make Judge Gorsuch look more appealing and more palatable and more moderate to some senators who may have doubts about him, that he would stand up to Donald Trump as a Supreme Court justice. So if I were somebody in the White House who was plotting Judge Gorsuch's confirmation, I would think that this is not the worst thing that can possibly happen, where Judge Gorsuch looks incredibly reasonable, despite the fact that the man who nominated him appears to be, as always, a little bit unreasonable.
Jamie, a minute ago, you said that Donald Trump doesn't appear to like criticism. His senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, said just the opposite this morning, that he's got a very thick skin, even from those people he's nominated. Listen.
Remember during the confirmation hearings for other still unconfirmed nominees that the president said at some point that he's very comfortable with his nominees expressing their own points of view. He said that when these folks were being grilled by the Democratic senators who ended up voting against them anyway for no good reason except politics. He said, I want them to express their own independent views. So the president is very comfortable with that.
We do have 3 independent branches of government, so if a member of the judiciary says he's uncomfortable when someone from the executive branch criticizes the independence of judges, it makes some sense, Jamie.
Well, if Donald Trump has thick skin, I have to say it's been well hidden. I do agree. I do agree with the essential point that there are three branches of government. This is not, the justice that will be Donald Trump's justice. He will get credit for appointing him, but he will be an independent person. But just to respond to this kabuki theater idea conspiracy, the reality is there doesn't need to be kabuki theater. There is no plot here that is necessary. There's nothing really the Democrats can do to stop Judge Gorsuch. They are in a very weak position unless their opposition researchers come up with information that he's a secret member of ISIS. He's going to get through. And by the way, even then, it's up to the Republicans decide to pull him. There doesn't need to be kabuki theater here. I think Judge Gorsuch is giving his honest opinion because anything he says is not going to stop his nomination. The Democrats are absolutely powerless.
Sometimes, the criticism goes both ways, Julie. Harken back to 2010 in that State of the Union address when President Obama was criticizing the decisions of the Supreme Court. Remember this?
Absolutely.
With all due deference to separation of powers, last week the Supreme Court reversed a century of law that I believe will open the floodgates for special interests, including foreign corporations, to spend without limit in our elections.
You saw Judge Alito there seeming to disagree quite strongly with the president. So Julie, what about that? I mean, this isn't the first time that there's been a disagreement between the legislative branch and the judicial branch, even though this nominee is not on the Supreme Court.
It is one thing to obviously disagree with the decision the Supreme Court made. It's another thing to call into question the integrity of the separate branch of government, as the President Trump did, when he called a judge who ruled against his immigration policies as a quote-unquote so-called judge.
All right.
That's a much different theory. And as to Jamie's point, Jamie, you still do need 60 votes to get Judge Gorsuch through, unless Mitch McConnell wants to initiate the nuclear option.
We'll let you argue that another time.
God bless.
Have some breaking news now, Jamie, and
back to the White House now, where Donald Trump just swore in Attorney General Jeff Sessions.
Violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officials. Very important. All very important. Thank you all very much. Jeff, I know you're going to do a fantastic job. Good luck.
We'll get you a little bit more of that video as it was coming in to us. We have an extended version that we hope to show you sometime in our program. It's my understanding that was an executive order that President Trump was signing that will target crimes against law enforcement officers. That's coming through by way of Reuters on the wire, so we're going to go ahead and check that. But apparently that's the executive action that he signed as he was also swearing in Senator Sessions to now be our Attorney General. Attorney General Sessions now says that there's a rise in crime in our country and that it's a dangerous permanent trend in the United States, and that's what he hopes to address. So we're going to sort through a few of these headlines, bring you a little bit more of that tape play out as well, hopefully, and get you caught up with everything else that's happening in Washington, D.C.
And remember way back when, more than a year ago, I think, when Jeff Sessions, the senator from Alabama, was the first leading Republican to endorse Donald Trump. A lot of people thought Donald Trump could never win the nomination, could never become president. And here comes a senator from Alabama saying, I'm going to endorse this guy. He was the first senator to do so.
It's a good reminder for us today.
And now he's the Attorney General.
Part of the cabinet. And we'll look forward to other nominations that we expect to happen to be confirmed over the next several days.
We're also following a developing story out of Israel. The Israeli Defense Forces shooting down several incoming rockets. ISIS is now claiming responsibility for this attempted attack. It comes only days before Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's first meeting with President Trump.
A Fox News weather alert, a powerful, fast-moving storm sweeping through the Northeast, impacting millions of people, making for a slippery morning commute as some areas brace for blizzard conditions and more than a foot of snow. Here's the scene right here in New York City, outside Fox News World headquarters and nearby in Times Square as well. We're tracking the storm. Let's check in with our Fox News correspondent, Molly Line, who's live in Plymouth, Massachusetts, getting the full benefit of the weather. Molly?
Hi, Jenna, you're right. Here we are in America's hometown on the main street. The flakes are just beginning to fly. This is expected to be the most powerful storm that this region has seen since 2015. Remember those epic snowfalls back that year? We're expecting to get a pretty big one today. South of the city of Boston, from the South Shore down through Cape Cod, we could get upwards of 14 to 18 inches, and it's expected to pound down throughout the afternoon, 2 to 3 inches an hour. High winds also predicted. That could mean a lot of power outages. That'll be something we'll be tracking. And already we're beginning to see the traffic snarled up. The morning commute was a mess on the way into the city today, and we're seeing flights canceled across the Northeast, particularly between Boston and New York. A big mess if you're trying to catch those commuter flights this morning. Here's what Boston's Mayor Marty Walsh had to say.
The challenge for all of us is to be prepared for whatever happens, and I do think it's important. Can't emphasize this enough. If you have the capacity to work from home, you should seriously consider doing that.
Really such a slushy mess that we're expecting throughout the afternoon. The temperature is still relatively warm in the 30s, but they're expected to drop into the teens as we head into the evening hours. There's one positive, possibly a negative, depending on how you look at this. This storm's expected to move very quickly, which means it'll move out by late this evening. But that also means throughout the afternoon today, it'll be massive dumping all at once. So it'll be really hard to see out there. They're advising, as you heard, for folks to stay off the roads. Jenna?
Molly, thank you very much. Molly Lyon out there in the storm. As she mentioned, it's supposed to come through quickly, but there's still going to be quite an impact. And by the way, it's not just on the Northeast. We're seeing now the FAA is issuing a full ground stop at JFK International Airport, and they already put on their Twitter account, FAA News, that it's impacting flights all the way out in California, including Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. So we're all in it together, even if you're not getting the storm.
Fifth busiest airport in the country shuts down. It's going to hold a lot of planes that are inbound to New York and other places.
Of course, in New York City, we have a lot of famous landmarks, the Statue of Liberty being one of them. And if you were here visiting New York, you're not able to actually go to the Statue of Liberty. It is officially closed today. Here's one shot we had from earlier this morning. This is a live camera that you can check in on Lady Liberty wherever you are online. This is what the camera looks like now, John. Lady Liberty is somewhere in there, but you can see why they closed down the national park for today.
That's what you call low visibility.
That's right. And a little bit more from New York City, Times Square as well. EarthCam is a great source for a lot of these photos. And it is a day where there's a lot of schools that are closed down as well. So you do have some children benefiting, if you will. I mean, they get a little bit of a break. Not much, John, but a little bit of a pause.
In New York, we cannot complain about our winter thus far. It's
Absolutely.
been pretty serene.
But she looks good there.
Yeah.
Someone's enjoying it.
Live pictures from our Times Square camera over Times Square. Good thing they got the ball dropped in reasonably good weather.
That's absolutely the truth. So this is what's happening all up and down the Northeast. As we saw John Roberts, and Washington, D.C. hasn't received the snow as of yet, but certainly a big swath, about 40 million people being affected by this.
I was walking into the office today and felt sorry for the folks who are out there trying to plow the sidewalks and power broom them. I mean, you know, this city is so jam-packed with pedestrians, and they're trying to drive these little tractors and snow blowers around. Good for them.
It looked like a little bit of a losing battle earlier today, right?
It was. We'll get it under control, though, anyway. President Trump set to talk U.S. foreign policy and the war on terror today with leaders of Afghanistan and Qatar. Plus, Iran once again defies America and really the world, firing another missile just days after being officially put on notice by the Trump administration. So how should the U.S. respond? O'Reilly, here's some. Now this Fox News alert, and the commander of U.S. forces in Afghanistan says a U.S. Special Forces member has been severely wounded today in that country. Meantime, Congress is holding a hearing on the deteriorating situation in Afghanistan right now. This amid new evidence the resurgent Taliban is as deadly as ever. National security correspondent Jennifer Griffin live in Washington with more on all of that. Jennifer.
John, 12 U.S. troops have been killed in Afghanistan since October. The top U.S. commander in Afghanistan, General John Nicholson, is facing tough questions right now from lawmakers on the Hill who want to know when the war in Afghanistan will end, why the U.S. is not winning, and what the American people have gotten after 15 years of war. While President Trump has asked the Pentagon to come up with a plan to defeat ISIS, the same request was not made for Afghanistan. Here's the chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Senator John McCain.
In your overall commander's assessment, are we winning or losing? Mr. Chairman, I believe we're in a stalemate.
General Nicholson says he is a few thousand troops short to train Afghan forces. 1,400 U.S. troops were pulled out of Afghanistan in December and January. In a devastating report, the United Nations said this week more civilians were killed in Afghanistan last year than any time in nearly a decade. The U.S. has spent more money to rebuild Afghanistan than on the Marshall Plan, $117 billion to date, $13 million a day. And there are more U.S. troops in Afghanistan than in Iraq right now, 8,400 in Afghanistan compared to roughly 6,000 in Iraq. The number of U.S. troops in Afghanistan has declined significantly over the past years, less than 10% of when it peaked in 2011 during President Obama's surge. Today, there are fewer American troops in Afghanistan than any time since 2002. And yet the attacks continue. 6 Red Cross workers were killed by militants in northern Afghanistan yesterday. The day before that, a suicide attack outside the Supreme Court in Kabul killed 20 people and wounded dozens. President Trump only mentioned Afghanistan once when he met with commanders at CENTCOM this week. The subject hardly surfaced on the campaign trail, John, causing some to ask if Afghanistan has again become America's forgotten war. John?
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date on that. Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. Thank you.
We're going to be talking a little bit more about that. We do have breaking news out of the White House. We showed you a little bit about what happened in the Oval Office just a few moments ago with President Trump swearing in Attorney General Jeff Sessions. And there was a little news made during that period. We're going to have the full tape playback of what happened inside the Oval Office for you in a few moments. But a few headlines before that. It's our understanding that President Trump actually signed 3 executive orders, not just one. They dealt with topics like transnational drug cartels, as well as anyone who commits a crime against a law enforcement officer. Let's go ahead. This is the tape play out from the Oval Office a few moments ago, and here is President Trump.
Thank you very much, everybody, for being here today. It is with great pride, very great pride, that I say these words to you right now. Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Welcome to the White House. I want to congratulate you, Jeff, your wife Mary, and your entire family. Jeff Sessions has been a federal prosecutor, the highest level and at the most respected level, a state attorney general, and then a U.S. senator for 2 decades. He has devoted his life to the cause of justice and believes deeply that all people are equals in the eyes of the law. And very importantly for Jeff and for so many of us, also in the eyes of God. He's a man of integrity, a man of principle, and a man of total, utter resolve. You just got a little witnessing of that. That resolve is what we need right now. America faces many challenges. We face the menace of rising crime and the threat of deadly terror. And it's not getting better, but it will get better very soon. It's going to get a lot better. These dangerous times require a determined Attorney General, which is what Jeff is. Jeff understands that the job of Attorney General is to serve and protect the people of the United States. And that is exactly what he will do, and do better than anybody else can. He's trained better for it than anybody else. The level of respect that he has throughout this country as a former prosecutor, not even to mention being a longtime U.S. Senator, is absolutely incredible. He will be a great protector of the people. I'm signing 3 executive actions today designed to restore safety in America. These executive actions continue to deliver on my campaign promises. First, I'm directing Department of Justice and Homeland Security to undertake all necessary and lawful action to break the back of the criminal cartels that have spread across our nation and are destroying the blood of our youth and other people, many other people. Secondly, I'm directing Department of Justice to form a task force on reducing violent crime in America. And thirdly, I'm directing the Department of Justice to implement a plan to stop crime and crimes of violence against law enforcement officers. It's a shame what's been happening to our great, truly great law enforcement officers. That's going to stop as of today. Today's ceremony should be seen as a clear message to the gang members and drug dealers terrorizing innocent people. Your day is over. A new era of justice begins, and it begins right now. I want to again thank and congratulate Mary and our new Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. I wish you God's wisdom and blessings in your journey. Mr. Vice President, would you please conduct the swearing in? Thank you. Thank you very much for being here, everyone.
My great privilege on behalf of the President of the United States to administer to you the oath of office. Please place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Jeff Sessions, do solemnly swear.
I, Jeff Sessions, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
Of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Mr. President, any reaction to Judge Gorsuch's comments about you, sir?
Bring that down a little bit. Mr. President, thank you for this great honor. It's something I never expected would happen in my life, but I do love the Department of Justice. I care about its traditions and its heritage. I had 15 years in that great department, and the honor to lead it now is something that I do not have words to express effectively. There are a lot of things we need to do. First, we need to value and support and encourage the fabulous people who work there. I've worked with them over the years. I know how good they are, and their talents need to be directed at this nation's benefit in a lot of different ways. We have a crime problem. I wish the rise that we're seeing in crime in America today were some sort of aberration or a blip. My best judgment, having been involved in criminal law enforcement for many years, is that this is a dangerous, permanent trend that places the health and safety of the American people at risk. We will deploy the talents and abilities of the Department of Justice in the most effective way possible to confront this rise in crime and to protect the people of our country. We have an increased threat since I was United States Attorney from terrorism, Mr. President. You've spoken firmly on that. You've led this nation to say we're going to respond effectively to the threat of terrorism, and you can count on your Department of Justice to do so in an effective way. And you've said something that I believe, and I think the American people believe, that we need a lawful system of immigration, one that serves the interests of the people of the United States. That's not wrong, that's not immoral, that's not indecent. We admit 1 million people a year plus who lawfully, and we need to end this lawlessness that threatens the public safety, pulls down wages of working Americans. It is an honor beyond words to serve under you and your leadership. You're putting together a great cabinet, which is just a thrill for me to have the opportunity to join, and I look forward to making sure that every ounce of strength I have and that the people of the Department of Justice have is going to be focused on preserving and protecting the Constitution and the safety of this country. We will defend the laws of this country as passed by Congress. We'll defend the lawful orders of the President of the United States with vigor and determination. Thank you all for being here. I see a lot of good friends, and may God bless all our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll have the executive order.
Mr. President, these are proposed executive orders approved by the Department of Justice.
Enforcing federal law with respect to the transnational criminal organization and preventing international trafficking. Order accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Task Force on Crime Reduction and Public Safety. Jeff, what do you go with that one? Jeff, what do you think? Preventing violence against federal, state, tribal, and local law enforcement officials. Very important. All very important. Thank you all very much. Jeff, I know you're going to do a fantastic job. Good luck. Thank you.
Well, every once in a while we get a little bit more from the president, but not that time. There was quite a bit there in about 11 minutes of tape we watched. Attorney General Sessions, the swearing in of him becoming Attorney General and joining the president's cabinet. As the president said, John, a new era of justice begins, and it begins right now.
He campaigned as a law and order candidate, Donald Trump did. And so he is following through with his appointment of Jeff Sessions, who is a former Alabama Attorney General as well, to the Attorney General position in the United States. I was referring back to what I mentioned earlier. Sessions was really one of the first mainstream Republicans to come out to endorse Donald Trump, and that was February 28th of 2016, so just about 50 weeks ago, a couple of days ahead of Super Tuesday. Jeff Sessions helped Donald Trump sort of pull away from Ted Cruz in ahead of Super Tuesday by giving him his endorsement.
And as you rightly point out, a lot of the themes that were presented then are themes that are continued now. We're seeing that from Attorney General Sessions, even in his comments, saying we have a crime problem in this country, and it will be that, in his best judgment, that this is a trend that will continue, and that a lawful immigration policy is something that he's for, but he wants to end the lawlessness, suggesting that what is happening with immigration right now is not in his is, in his view, the right way. So we'll wait for more from the Department of Justice. It was interesting that Attorney General Sessions, when he handed the executive orders to President Trump, he said these were approved by the Department of Justice. So there has been apparently some checking of that executive orders that were signed today.
A strong emphasis, as you saw with the signing of those 3 executive orders, one of them containing a DOJ task force on attacks against police. That's going to be one of the themes of this new administration.
So we got a lot to get to today. We also want to continue our conversation about Afghanistan, the current state of affairs there, but also Iran. Iran's anniversary of their revolution is tomorrow, and the leader there is promising something. We'll talk about what that is after the break.
Fox News alert for you. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer is talking about sanctuary cities. The president has threatened to pull federal funding from cities that shield undocumented immigrants. In the meantime, the Texas Senate passing a bill to deny state funding to sanctuary cities and counties. Several other states are introducing similar measures, and one Ohio town is reversing its policy as a former sanctuary city. Other areas are moving toward becoming sanctuaries, such as California, with a bill that would make it a sanctuary state. Let's bring in our legal panel to discuss the implications of all this. Brian Claypool is with us, and we'll have Yodit Tewelde in just a moment. Brian, first of all, a sanctuary city, just because well, give us a legal definition of what it generally means.
Well, John, a sanctuary city, basically, in my opinion, is violating federal law. They're basically harboring undocumented illegal immigrants in the United States, and they're shielding them, basically, in my opinion, from any kind of legal implications and from deportation. So that creates a threshold issue and a problem, which is, what should President Trump do with cities like you just mentioned? I'm in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is considering this. I mean, what should we do when cities are basically snubbing federal law? And I think Trump is on the right track. And you can't continue to fund cities that are harboring undocumented illegal immigrants. But that raises another issue, John, which I'm sure you're going to talk about, is what do you do then with all these immigrants that are undocumented once you corral them in? Should we deport some? Should we not? And in my opinion, we need to focus on those undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes. They need to be adjudicated before an immigration court, and if so, then deported.
Yodit Tewelde is joining the conversation now, a defense attorney and former prosecutor as well. Yodit, I want you to listen to what Sean Spicer, the president's spokesman, had to say about this topic just yesterday. Listen.
The president's going to do everything he can within the scope of the executive order to make sure that cities who don't comply with it, counties and other institutions that remain sanctuary cities, don't get federal government funding in compliance with the executive order.
So there are a couple, Yodit, that have already reneged on their sanctuary city status. Miami-Dade County is one. Also, Dayton, Ohio just said we are no longer going to be a sanctuary city. The big stick that the White House seems to be wielding appears effective here, Yodit.
Well, see, Donald Trump's administration is having to now strong arm these sanctuary cities because they don't have the law on their side. And it makes it very, very clear. There's a ruling, a federal ruling out of the Third Circuit that says that states and localities do not have to cooperate with detainers, and that is from immigration. The federal government can't make states and localities pay for a federal issue. Immigration is a federal issue. What I have an issue with is due process. There have been citizens, U.S. citizens, detained in jail who can't bond out because of a detainer, because there was a hunch that they may be undocumented. That is violating their constitutional rights. I have an issue with that. If the federal government wants to detain somebody based on their immigration status, what they need to do is get a warrant, have a judge, a hearing, a judge find probable cause to hold them, and then house them in a federal detention center. Not these local agencies, these local jails where the taxpayers are having to foot the bill. That's what I have an issue with.
But a lot of people, Brian, I think are wondering, how did we reach a stage where local law enforcement, and in some cases state law enforcement, refuses to cooperate with federal law enforcement?
Well, John, I think a big problem is during the President Obama administration, for example, to address Yodit's point, too. there are right now, John, at least 40 to 50 judicial openings in the immigration court system. In other words, President Obama did not appoint 40 to 50 immigration judges on the bench to adjudicate serious cases. For example, immigrants who have committed crimes. They're not even being taken care of. That the system is in shambles, the immigration system. So because none of these undocumented or illegal immigrants who have committed crimes are being adjudicated in the immigration system, they're just sitting there like a quagmire, and then that gives localities and cities an excuse because they haven't been subjected to an adjudication in the immigration process. So I think Trump, the first thing he's got to do, he's got to burden the hand right now. Put this executive travel ban order aside. He's got a lot of, I think, immigrants who have committed crimes who should be deported. Those who have not should not be deported. He's got to prioritize. But the first thing he's got to do is appoint some judges so that we can get these adjudications taken care of and these people sent back.
Yodi, would that perhaps help stem the kind of problem you were just talking about?
No, see, local agencies don't want to house these individuals based on just detainers because it opens them up to liability. When you are holding somebody based on a detainer, not probable cause, that they are undocumented, that opens them up to lawsuits. And that is where ICE can say, you know what, our hands are clean because our requests for detainers are just that, just requests. They're not mandatory. So Dallas County, we spend about $1 million a month housing people based on detainers, and ICE isn't even coming to get them. That is a taxpayer's bill. So there is a huge issue with this. I don't think that the solution is to cut funding, because what you're going to do then is punish the actual citizens who are going to benefit from these programs.
A lot of negotiations still to be done between the federal government and the local ones. Yodit Tewelde, Brian Claypool, thank you.
Iran is firing another missile, but they're not the only one. We'll tell you where else next.